Hi, Colleen Schmidt here, Divination Counseling Service, here to present to you the full moon of August 3rd, 2020. Interestingly, today is the new moon, and this will be the following full moon. So I wanted to look at this because it had some really interesting stuff to tell us, and I think real interesting information that we could learn from. So as we look at this chart, let's look at the first thing, which is, in my opinion, the most important, which is the sun and the moon axis, or that alignment of 11 degrees of Leo Aquarius. Now, the first thing that I thought was really interesting and important about this particular lineup is the fact that we're talking about the 10th and the fourth houses. And that is exactly what many of us are struggling with right now. Here is the 10th. That's the outer world, it's social status, it's even the future. And it's right up against the moon in Aquarius, which is the home, the family. Okay? So we're struggling between going out there in the world and then worried about it, because there's our gloom and doom, and are to the home life, which is where we feel maybe the safest. Many of us is being the safest. The other thing I want to point out here is it's rather chaotic because we really thought things would be different. There's our Pythia right here at 18 degrees. They're all retrograde, but they're going to be in the back of our mind if they're not in the forefront. So the retrograde still makes them effective, just not quite as strong. And this Amor that starts here is also very interesting. All of this would be an aspect to this moon, taking chances, and having to have boundaries with people that are closest to us. And this would be particularly true if you have members of your family that don't think they need to comply with the social distancing guidelines. Okay? Up here is the sense of gloom and doom, and the fact that we have to apply strategy. The fact that everything is going slow, and that the reason why things are going slow sometimes is because of the risks that people are willing to take. It just jacks up the numbers, and it causes the whole pandemic to last longer, and it creates more crises, which is another term that can be used for Apollo. So, crises after crises. Anyway, so I wanted to look at that immediately because I thought that was extremely truthful in light of today being July 20th, 2020. And I can honestly say to you that even in our own household, there are discussions that rely and lie along those lines. The other things I thought were really interesting about this particular chart were, of course, the angles of the chart. The chart is ruled by Venus, okay? I did want to show you that. So let's look at that. Venus and the nodes are a part of this Sun-Moon alignment, okay? As is Mars, which is really interesting because Mars is also on an angle. So I'm going to go a little bit off here. I'm going to point to this. Okay, so here's our Venus node, okay? And right at the bottom of Venus node, we have, yes, indeed, the sun and the moon. So that means we have a sun, moon equals node Venus. This can be connections for money. This can be connections with loved ones, okay? But remember that everything that I just spoke about directly applies the gloom and doom, the taking risks, causing chaos. All of this is in this axis. And remember, this is within this 2-week period. So some of it could be felt today because we're now at the place where that new moon is in full force, and we're rolling into the full moon already. So for the next 2 weeks, you'll see this begin to come up. So just staying with this, I also feel like there are some surprises, and some of the surprises will be gloom and doom. So I really wanted to bring that out because I think bad numbers are a big factor here, okay? Now, something else I wanted to well, let's go back to the Mars, okay? So I want to get through this whole thing before I go into the other. Mars is about healing. It's a square, and we're going to get back to that. Just as Mars is opposite the seed or the excitement right now. And remember that it's a moon node, so we're talking about the public and general public connections, okay? And the Mars is an aggressive, unpredictable kind of an energy. And I definitely want to point that it's anger also, and that this will be very visible to us within the next 2 weeks. Other people's anger. The other thing I wanted to look at just really quickly is the Aries point itself, which, let's go right to it by the minute. So we're going to minimize right back to 0. Okay, so a couple of different things pop up here. I definitely think there's going to be news about the restrictions and what's going on. But I also get this feeling of compression, or I get this feeling of, it's an atomitos. I know that we feel stuck, so we could even relate to that, okay? But I definitely, and nemesis, just the fact that we are in this place, I think is a factor. You know, the restaurant business is right in here too, and that's the Mars Sirius. And I definitely think when it comes to dining out, and I myself have been really leery about doing that, although I did try it recently. And I was pleasantly surprised at how well it was done, although I have to mention I was there at an off hour, and I went to places that there was like no one there. But because people are feeling such a sense of gloom and doom, they're going to be like me, and they're going to look for things like that. So this Hades Neptune is also about the destruction, the deterioration of this disease, and all the things that we don't know, and how much the fact that we don't know can be its own destruction, if you will, or its own limitation. I mean, they don't even know that the antibodies stay with us. They don't know if we would be permanently damaged. So there's so many unknowns here. And I think that that does cause a little bit more discomfort with the general public. Not everybody, of course. Now, as we go into the wheel, and I want to go back to the angles, and we want to look at that Mars. The Mars is an impetuous energy, and it's Karen's gone wild. Karen's and Ken's gone wild. Yes, because people are angry. We're all angry. It's just that some people don't deal with their anger very well, and they start lashing it all around them. Now, the interesting thing is that's what that EOS stands for here with the moon, is, you know, misdirected energy is associated with that often. And, you know, we've got in a sextile, anger. So anger is misdirected? Yeah, I'm going to say that it is. So we're here, and we see the axis of this chart, and this is a ruled by Venus chart. Remember, Venus node is equal to the sun on the dial, okay? So this Venus node is in a beautiful trine, so open-ended trine, very wide, but trine to our ascendant. I think we all want to do the right thing. I do. Zeus is, there's a lot of excitement, but there's this directional maybe misfunction, you know, where we just don't know what to do. So you're kind of stymied. In any event, and also this, you know, feeling captive here. Now, this is not in aspect, so I do want to put that out there. That's not in aspect. Our aspects would be down here, okay? So we're looking at things like the service industry. So there's going to be a lot of news about that, I think, over the time. And I think anger, because they're the ones that have seemed to have suffered. Although it was in a bar that I believe 150 people were affected. So, you know, here we go again with, you have to reinvent yourself, and you have to do things differently. Because if you rely on the same old, it's not happening. And I had done a video before this one that I did not like as much. And basically one of the things I did discuss is the fact that this virus was predicted. Here we are, Vesta Hygeia. So we're keeping a distance, which is better for us with this disease or pandemic, because it's not even disease, it's a pandemic. It's a pandemic they know nothing about yet. So we're in this pandemic here, and there's news about it. And then you get this, also, you get this pressure because of it. You know, we're being pressured. We want to have an economy, but people will die if we don't do things correctly. So if we go back to the original, I know I've mentioned this on other videos, if we go back to the original prediction by Nostradamus himself on this virus, it is here to destroy our economy. Yes, some people will freak and panic about that, but you shouldn't, because we don't have a good economy. An economy where you need 3 jobs to make it work is not a good economy. We have an opportunity here to basically set up a whole new ground floor structure, which we are going to do over the next several years. That is what this is about. It's about reinventing ourselves. And I think when you think about all of the things like the movie theaters and that have moved outdoors into cars, concerts, they have reinvented themselves, and they've done a very good job here. And this Jupiter Pluto, it is healing. It is very healing. You think, how could it be healing? People are broke. You know, that's true, but money isn't everything. And maybe that's the first lesson that we have to learn here, is that we have to learn to do with less. And I know that I can sit here and say that, and a lot of people who are really suffering, and I myself have suffered. I get it. I've chosen a path that I've chosen, so therefore I've never made much money in my life, and I've always learned to do without. It isn't a bad thing, because I've never felt deprived, and I always felt I had a great life. I learned that I have to follow my heart, and I think that there's going to be many, many people doing that. I just think I'm a little ahead of my time in that respect. So we are going to have healing, Saturn and Pluto all at the IC, but also realize that Pluto is this, you know, I'm getting further and further in debt. And, you know, some interesting concepts have come up, and if you keep, you know, we want to keep throwing money at businesses, and we want to keep helping businesses stay open, and I'm okay with that. But at some point, you got to admit that the real economy is based in people and not businesses. And that if you really want your economy to thrive and survive, then you might not want to give as much to businesses as you're giving to the people themselves. Because it is people who need to reinvent themselves. And some of these businesses, no matter how much money you give them, will not survive the amount of time it's going to take till we get to a place where you could be open full capacity again. And some people may not like full capacity when we get back there, because they've gotten used to lesser in terms of capacity. And there is a huge difference, as I'm somebody who's an introvert and I don't like big crowds. I never did. So social distancing for me has been somewhat of a no-brainer. But not everyone is me. Some people are highly social, in which case I think you need to get Zoom, FaceTime, and a bunch of other things. We're living in a time where nobody should be deprived, because we have so many things available to us, and you have to prioritize things. So this is healing, no matter how hard it is, okay? These are the strategies. Now, here's something I spent a lot of time talking about in the other video that I didn't use. Masks. What do you think this is? Strategy Cupido. Well, Cupido's faces, okay? A face mask. And I believe over the next 2 weeks, they will become more prevalent, in that if we want to heal our economy, if we want to develop a new economy, we have to develop ways to protect ourselves. That includes an abundance, I love that, of face masks. I think we should use them as statements. You know, I remember someone asking me, is this going to go away? I sew masks. And I started laughing. No. As a matter of fact, in my mind, I'm thinking people who are going to do well are people who design, you know, masks with crystals on them and designs. And I know I'm right. So I think it's a whole new business. I think we have to look at everything that way. It's not a restriction that you're being held captive on, okay? It's an opportunity to serve in a different way. And let the pride go a little bit, people, because that's what's causing all of this anger. to come out. And the people that won't wear masks, I'm going to be honest with you, I do see some of it being a pride issue. I also think that we need to wear masks because it protects the people who are working as employees in these different venues. And that is also what this is talking about. Now, on a whole other level, that Zeus, Hebe, because that's what this is that I keep going back and forth on. This is Hebe, this is Zeus. Okay, Hebe is opposite Mars also. And honestly, don't enable people who are showing bad judgment. I think that, you know, I love this. We all have this First Amendment rights. Really? Because honestly, I think that we need to make people more accountable, which means if you're going to open your mouth and shed a conspiracy theory, you need to be made accountable for that. I think they're starting to even do that with the president. You can't get out there and gaslight people with a bunch of lies. Or your rights. That's only going to get people to then require that you be accountable to your behavior. And I do believe that we might ultimately start looking at that because the anger is maybe becoming, and the fact that some people think they can do whatever they want and they don't have good boundaries, I think that that's going to be a real issue to bring up some real anger. So I'm thinking these are not just our Karens that are angry, these are people like me that are angry because they feel that by not wearing masks and not complying with the health crisis, that they are indeed enabling bad behavior. And they are. So I do want to point that out. That's using asteroids a little bit here. I really feel like if we just throw little asteroids in here and there, that we'll learn a lot more. So let's go back up here. Shiva is about withdrawing. And I want to say this. I think there is going to be a lot of questioning of information that's going on. We're getting a lot of mixed messages. We can thank, again, the people at the top for this. I mean, let's really be honest. Our country has not done a good job with this. Too many people are dying and too many people have the disease. And it's a disaster to think we can go to herd immunity because we don't even know about this and we don't even know if the antibodies will stay. So sure, let's go herd immunity and then next year go through this all over again because the antibodies don't stay in our system. So we have to think about that. And I do believe that there will be some withdrawal from Vesta work, okay, and distancing. It really is about distancing. So watch unemployment numbers in the next couple of weeks might go back up again. And it will have a lot to do with, again, the restaurant and service business right here. And again, it is what it is. And we have to learn to live with it. So reinvent ourselves. We cannot go back to the way things were. Remember, the basic concept of this virus is that we're redoing our economy. We're rebuilding it. We're healing it from being the unequal economy that it was, where all the rich get all the money and all the poor just starve or work 3 jobs. And that's not an economy. I'm sorry, it's just not an economy. So we have to think about living fuller lives. And that means you can't work 65 hours a week if you want a real life. If you want a real life to enjoy the greenery and smell the air and just go out and put your feet in the water, you can't work that much. You're going to miss a very big element in why you're even here on this earth plane. We don't want that. So neither does Pluto, neither does Saturn, neither does Jupiter. So right now, all of the planets lining up on the IC, requiring us to use Pallas, or up here Minerva, strategize, think it through, people. We're smart. We're in the 21st century. We have technology at our fingertips. I think there's a lot that we can do to help our own healing. And healing is about money, okay? So I love this though, Pallas, Cupido, Abundia. That is wearing face masks, people. I think that's going to be a huge conversation in the next 2 weeks. And do not be surprised if more states mandate it overall. I think in the end, whether the president goes for it or not, the majority of the states will have mask laws. Otherwise, how do you open? How do you open without any protection? So, with that said, I'm going to leave it there. And if you have any questions, as always, check me out on the website, divinationcounselingservice.org, or if you want any private work done. But most importantly, let's share. Let's do whatever you need to do, but get the word out there, guys. We are healing. It is good news. I know that it's hard, but remember, as human beings, we learn the best lessons the hard way. It just seems like when things are too easy, we don't learn anything at all. So, with that said, happy learning, and may you learn well, so we don't have to repeat these things again. Happy reading.